Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me for today. Let's take a couple of minutes maybe for the late ones to join, and we can kick it off in a minute or two. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Let me know in the chat what you're expecting from today's session. I hope I will be able to fulfill your expectations. And let's maybe wait for a few minutes for everybody to join. Hello, Piotr. Hello, Warsaw. Nice to see you here. All right. I think we can start. If somebody's going to be late, no worries. We're going to catch them up. All right. So welcome again. My name is Michael, and I'm going to be your host for today. And today's session that we prepared for you is about the strategic framework for getting AI in business right. So again, my name is Michael. I'm a partnership manager at Adepto. And for the next hour, we're going to talk about how to integrate artificial intelligence into your business operations in the most effective way possible. And I will be sharing an overview of the framework that we at Adepto use when we consult with companies to basically help them integrate artificial intelligence into their workflows. So whether you're only starting with AI or maybe you already experimented with some things, I hope that by the end of this hour, you will be able to have a more structured way of thinking about how to move with AI adoption in your company. A few words about me. I'm an AI consultant at Adepto and partnership manager as well. And for past over 10 years, I've been living on the intersection of technology and business, helping business leaders integrate automation, technology, and artificial intelligence in a lot of different areas. And right now at Adepto, I'm really focused on getting the most value of artificial intelligence for our partners. And at Adepto, we generally work with different companies all around the world. We help them innovate. We help them integrate data-driven and AI-driven solutions into their businesses. And throughout the 8 years that we've been on the market, we've actually seen that it's not the technology that is the most difficult part about artificial intelligence. It's all the other things that make or break the initiatives that we've been working on. And a few words about the agenda for today. We're going to start with a brief overview of current situation, where we are at with AI these days, what is the hype, how people approach AI initiatives, and why most of them actually fail. And then we're going to move on to take a look at the framework that we are using at Adepto when we are consulting with other companies. And I'm going to leave you with a couple of key takeaways towards the end of this hour. If you will have any questions regarding anything that I'm going to say or show today, feel free to leave a question in the chat. We will try to answer all of them at the end of the session when we have some time for QA. All right, let's dig into it. So let's talk about the hype. What you see on your screen is actually what my newsfeed looks like every day, and I very much believe that most of you will see pretty much the same thing online. There is tons of information, tons of news every day. There is a new model coming out. There is a new AI-powered tool coming out. There is people building AI agents with code, no code, low code. There is plenty of new information coming in every day. And it's actually very, very difficult to stay on top of what's going on in this industry. For some people, it might be even impossible to actually fit in the time in the day to read everything and understand every single new tool and maybe try it out and maybe see if it works for them in their business. And to be honest with you, the hype and the information overload is something that is more of a distraction than something that actually is useful. I've talked to a lot of business leaders who told me that they actually feel they are falling behind because they haven't tried the new ChatGPT model that's been out for a week. And this is actually not the right way to go about it. The people that get the most value from artificial intelligence, machine learning, or other similar solutions are not the ones that are testing every single tool that they see online, or maybe that was referred to them by a friend. These are the people who are actually asking the right questions and choosing the tools and the technology in a smarter way, not only following the hype, but actually following what their business needs at this very point in time. And just to prove what I'm saying, let's take a quick look at what BCG has done towards the end of last year. They've actually conducted a survey among 1,000 CXOs and business leaders, asking them about their AI initiatives, the way they are adopting artificial intelligence in their businesses. And you can see some of the results here on the screen. And actually, according to this, this survey, roughly 3 out of 4 companies that are heavily investing in artificial intelligence are not getting any value out of that. Only the 26% from the top are actually getting some real value and are able to scale their AI initiatives into production. They're able to see real value, and they are able to see the results that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen here. So they see increased revenue, they see shareholder return, they see return on investment, and these are very high numbers, as you can see. They see increased innovation. They even report improved employee satisfaction just because of the way they actually approached implementing artificial intelligence, the way they approached using new technologies and innovative technologies in their businesses. So the big question here is, what are they doing right that the other 75% are doing wrong? And let's maybe take a look at what is actually going wrong in most of those cases. So there's a couple of things worth mentioning here, and maybe let's go one by one. And the first one that I already mentioned is chasing the hype. So there's a lot of people that will basically see a piece of news on the internet, get something from their friends or maybe a colleague at work, and they will start digging into the new technology, and they will just try to force this new technology on their business, and it's not always the right way to go. Sometimes chasing the hype and just chasing every news headline that you see about artificial intelligence is not the way to go, because it's going to give you, again, information overload. It's going to give you tons of tools that you will test, and of course, it can end up in a minor success, but most of the time, this will lead you to a pilot hell or proof of concept hell, where you will try and try and try, but with no clear goal in mind, you will probably fail most of the times. The second one is overambitious adoption. And this is where, in most cases that we see, there is a person in a company that will be, don't get me wrong, those are people that will have very good intentions. They will want to use the newest possible technology, something cutting edge, just to help them out or help their team out. But they really try to automate everything, and they try to use artificial intelligence or AI-powered solutions for everything. And this is not the right way to go as well, because you will overload people with ideas, overload people with projects, something that becomes really unmanageable. And this may lead to basically all of those initiatives dying down slowly with no overlook from above. The third one, and it's one of the biggest one that we see, is data and skill misalignment. So the ideas that we get from people, from the companies that we work with, are most of the time very good, very much rooted into their strategy and very much informed as to what they would like to get from this project or this idea. But what happens when we start talking to them and we start digging into their current situation, it becomes quickly visible that the data that they have is not really aligned or complete with what they want to achieve. They cannot really work with any historical data or any data at all to achieve the goal that they're looking for. Or maybe they don't have the people or the management that will be capable of basically putting those initiatives into life. So this one is one of the biggest that we see, that we've seen so far. The ideas are there, the motivation is there, the strategy is there, but there's no data or no skills capable of actually making this happen. Another one, and this is a very common one. It's not very. It doesn't always directly impact the results of initiatives that we talk about here, but the scattered tool use that we have across a lot of companies, especially now that you can just quickly sign up for a new tool, you can quickly start using ChatGPT, Gemini, or any other AI-powered tool available. A lot of companies end up in a situation where you have one team doing pretty much the same job, pretty much the same process. Igor, my mic is scratching your... Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm going to try to disconnect and use my... Can you hear me now? Perfect. All right. So going back to the topic, a lot of times we see teams that are actually doing pretty much the same thing. They're following the same processes, but at the end of the day, they're using very different tools to achieve pretty much the same goal. So all of them, they have great ideas, they use great tools, but without like a general direction for the whole team, it becomes unmanageable. So it's better to actually have one tool implemented across the whole team, test it out as a team, and then see the results, rather than just random people trying random things, often not sharing the results, not sharing what they found out. So it becomes very like niche across the whole team, and the results are not to be seen anywhere across the business. Another one is lack of ROI and feasibility validation. So what it means is that a lot of companies, they come up with ideas, they start developing them, they maybe start implementing some solutions, but they don't have like a really clear goal in mind, and they cannot really measure the success of what they are trying to do. And what it does in most cases, it basically, well, people, when they start doing things, and it's probably an initiative that comes from down below, when it's becoming escalated to the leadership that it just doesn't follow the idea, because they don't see any arguments towards funding, for example, new tools or developing new tools, because they can't see the return on investment that they would basically make. And the final one is poor vendor choice. And it often happens that people will start building something internally using their own resources, and that's great. But in a lot of cases, they will come to companies from outside of their business, companies like us, that will help them build something, or maybe help them choose tools that they want to use for their use cases. And if you don't actually select the vendor or the tool in the proper way, it might end up in a situation that basically the misalignment between you and the vendor, or your company and the vendor, will result in poor adoption results. So these are the most common things that go wrong, but how to do this right? And we are going to slowly dive into the framework that I mentioned in the very beginning. But the core idea is that successful AI adoption is a strategic process. It's not a technical experiment. It's not a checklist that you have that you can just check every single point on the list. It's a continuous process, and it actually starts even before you do anything with the initiative itself. And there is a couple of things that I would like to mention that would be worth taking a look at before you even start going into the actual process of defining your AI strategy or choosing the tools that you want to use. And the first thing is to assess your AI maturity. And it's very important because it pertains to basically building awareness internally in your company. By building awareness, I mean you have to gauge how well your people understand artificial intelligence. Do they understand what it is, what it can do, what it cannot do, what are the limitations, what is the responsible way of using widely available artificial intelligence tools, how your people are ready to adopt those new technologies if they are afraid maybe. And there's a lot of people being afraid of new technologies and innovation right now, people being afraid of their jobs being taken by artificial intelligence. So this is like the first step to actually take. It's going to inform a lot of things that you will do later on, because depending on how mature your company is and your team is, you will be able to see what kind of initiatives you can push forward later on in the process. The next one is building, I actually said that already, building internal awareness. So if you see that your maturity is not actually there yet, and you feel that there is some things that you'd like to do before you start talking to your people about actually using some artificial intelligence, some form of artificial intelligence, it's very much worth maybe preparing some workshops, maybe doing some trainings that will at least level their knowledge at some basic point where they will have basic understanding of what artificial intelligence can and cannot do, how it works, how to approach thinking about using these kind of tools in everyday work. And once we are done with that, you will start noticing people in your team that will be, we call them AI champions, but these are actually people who are very eager to adopt new technologies, to try new things, to experiment with new things. And it's very important to spot those people as soon as possible, because later on in the process, they will be extremely helpful at actually pushing those initiatives forward. So they might be the people who will start using new technologies, new ideas, or new tools that you come up with. They will experiment with those ideas. They will come back to you with something that might actually give you a broader view of what's going on with the industry, or maybe they will give you an idea of how to use the tools that you've chosen for a different use case within your business. So they will be your main partners in this whole initiative. Another one, and this is extremely important if you want like a bigger initiative to come to life, is to align on priorities, especially with your top leadership, because at some point in time, everybody will need some kind of funding or sponsorship in this process, and it's very important to make sure that your business leaders are on board with what you are doing. So they will, when it comes to buying new tools, maybe investing in some partnerships, investing in new technology, new infrastructure, if they are on board and they understand that it's going to push the business forward, it's going to make your life easier within this project that we are going to talk about in a minute. And the last one, last but not least, encourage experimentation. A lot of the things that we are going to talk about today, and a lot of the things that when you start building innovative initiatives in your business, is about experimentation, about trying new things, about trying things that have not been done before in a way that you're doing them today. There's a lot of business changes, process changes in all of this. So building an atmosphere of experimentation and building like a safe place for your people where they will feel that it's okay for them to try new things and report back to you and tell you that maybe it didn't work, or maybe it worked and we can do something else with that. This is a very important thing, because it's going to set a good stage for what we are going to do next. And let's move on to the framework itself. So you can see the overview here, and in a minute I'm going to talk about every single of those stages in more detail, and I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that we and guidelines that we follow when we consult with other companies. But in general, the process is extremely simple. So we start with identifying business objectives, and we want to keep all that we are going to do next rooted into those business objectives, so that we always have an argument why we are doing exactly this thing. Then we are going to move to assessing our readiness, and based on this, we are going to define what we can or cannot do within our company, where we will need some external help. Maybe is there something that we have to change about the technology that we are using right now? And once we have this picture, we will try to find use cases within our business, high impact use cases that will give us great value. But you will see later on that there is a couple of things that we have to take into consideration when we will choose those use cases, because later on we try to evaluate the impact that all of those use cases will have on our business in terms of ROI, in terms of how fast we can get the value out of what we came up with. And then we have to decide whether we're going to build it ourselves or choose maybe a vendor that will build something for us, or maybe we will buy off-the-shelf products that already can cater to our needs. And at the very end, we start implementing things. Now, again, don't think about it as a checklist. It looks linear, but it's a circular process, and you will see later on what I mean by that. So let's dig into each and every phase separately. The first one is business objectives. And this is a very, very important part. And a lot of companies, they forget about it, unfortunately, and they just start trying out things. But it's very important to take a step back here and maybe take a look at what you are trying to achieve in your business and how later on you can root your ideas into those goals. So we start with identifying strategic goals. So we need to understand the future perspective of the business. We need to understand the objectives and the outcomes that you expect to have within the next year, 5 years, 10 years, depending on the horizon that you're looking at. And we want to understand what are the KPIs or the measures that you use to actually measure your business success, whether it's increased revenue, whether it's new products being developed, whether it's improving how fast your people are working on certain processes, whether it's faster decision making, whatever is actually most important to your business. And it's very different from business to business. So it's important to have a good picture of what are your business goals. Next, we have to take those objectives or KPIs, or however you actually name them or frame them, and we have to map them to the areas of your business. So it can be business units, it can be teams, it can be processes. The important thing is that you have to, at this point, understand which process or team or area in your business is responsible or is contributing to each one of the strategic goals that you've identified a minute ago. Once we have that, we have to identify the highest impact areas. So we take the objectives, the most important objectives from your business, and we find the areas or the processes that contribute the most or have the highest impact, or where some kind of automation has not been done, but when we do it, we're going to have very high impact, very high return on investment in terms of what we are going to do, whether it's going to be artificial intelligence or not. And we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. So by the end of this stage, you should have a clear understanding of what you're aiming at. So right now, we should know that whatever we are going to do next, whatever ideas we come up with next, we should think about this overarching goal that we have in our business, and we should focus on those few areas that have the highest impact on achieving those goals. And why we are doing this is because there's very often a tendency where businesses or companies, they want to run an initiative like this one across all business. And what it means is that they would like to take a look at every single business unit, every single area, every single person, every single process that we have in the company. But it's not always a good idea because it becomes very unmanageable, especially in larger organizations where you would have to take a look at, I don't know, 15 different departments. Each of those have hundreds of people. It becomes very difficult to keep this under wraps. That's why we try to, as soon as possible, identify those few areas that have the highest impact and that will actually, like whatever we will come up within those ideas will have high impact on the KPIs and results that we are looking for. The next step is a readiness assessment. And this one might be tricky because not all of businesses have the expertise, internal expertise to perform this fully. So it might be a good idea to think about having someone from outside of the company with good experience and expertise in those technologies to help you out with that. But we generally divide this part into 3 segments. The first one, and by far the most important, is the people. Because you can have all the technology in the world, you can have all the expertise in the technical sense, but if the teams that you are working with, they are not ready to adopt the new technology, it will basically fall into pieces. So it's important to ask yourself a couple of questions, such as, is your team ready for AI adoption in the sense that they will not oppose, they will not try to undermine the ideas that you have because, for example, they are afraid of losing their job because of new technologies. Do they understand what AI is and how to use it? Do they know how to use it responsibly? Do they know how to maintain those solutions? There are people who are maintaining a lot of systems in every single company, but those AI-powered systems, they might feel a bit different. Do they have the expertise or the basic knowledge to do this? And again, do they have this spirit of experimentation where they will feel at least a little bit excited about new things that are developing within the company? The next segment is the technology. And here we usually evaluate the infrastructure that's run in the company. We evaluate the tools that the company is already using. Is there any system that has some AI-powered features that might be used for certain future use cases? Do you have any internal resources, such as people who are able to develop AI-powered solutions or maybe maintain those solutions, or at least maintain the infrastructure that would be needed to build those? And the technology goes hand in hand with data. And this one, again, is very important. So we have to, at this point, have a good understanding of what data is available within the company, within the business, so that we have a clear picture of what we can actually do with this data later on once we start coming up with ideas for use cases. Then what is the quality of data? Is there any extra work that we need to make this data usable for our future use cases? Do we need to clean it? Do we need to get some extra data that is missing that we would like to use for our purposes? Using some external data resources is also a good idea, and it's important to have those identified as soon as possible. And once we are sure of the situation that we are in right now, so we have a clear picture of what are our limitations, especially within tech and data, those will inform what are your limitations in terms of how you are going to approach every single use case in the future. And the next step is actually use case ideation. And this one is by far the most exciting for everyone that we are working with, because this is where we start talking about actual use cases. And what is very important in this part is to establish at least a couple of channels of communication with your people, so that they can basically surface their ideas, whether it's going to be workshops or interviews, or maybe a Slack channel dedicated to new ideas, or maybe a Google form, or any other kind of way that will feel comfortable to your people, so that they can, at any point in time, raise their hand and say, look, I have an idea, maybe we could do X, Y, Z, and then you as moderator will act thinking about all the things that you understood and found out in the previous phases, whether it's a good idea, whether it's worth exploring it. Maybe there's some limitations that you already know about where you can take this new idea from your people and do something more with that. Now, there is a couple of things that are very much worth doing, and maybe a couple of things that are worth avoiding within this phase of the process. And a couple of things that are very much worth doing that we see are working very, very well within our projects is, first of all, letting the ideas flow from the bottom up. So what it means is that in a lot of cases, there is a very strong push from the leadership to implement something new, to start using artificial intelligence or start using any other new technology, but it doesn't always correspond with what the people actually doing those processes are doing. So it's better to actually start getting ideas from the bottom, from the people who are doing hands-on work for your business, so they give you a sense of what kind of repetitive tasks, what kind of problems they have, what are the bottlenecks in their everyday job. And automating some of those like parts of those jobs will make your people happy. First of all, it will make their life easier, but it will also add up to the general goal that we are thinking about in terms of your strategic business long-term objectives. Most of the time we focus, at least in the very beginning, on the mundane, repetitive tasks. So if there is something that a single person does every couple of days, every couple of hours maybe, and it's something that is prone to automation, that you can easily think about how to automate it using, for example, artificial intelligence. These are the things that are best to start with, because it's easy to automate them. There is already an idea of how a person would do that, which actually makes it easier for any kind of software to automate this task. And for every single idea that you or your people come up with, it's very important to in a very detailed way document all of those ideas based on what you're trying to achieve, what kind of process we are talking about, what is the complexity of the problem, how long would it take to actually see some kind of value from solving this problem. And then once you have this, you can connect it to the KPIs. So we are going back again to the first step that we took in this journey. We are talking about strategic goals and KPIs all the time. So if you have an idea, if you have a use case identified, as soon as possible, try to tie it to some kind of a metric that will be used later on to, for example, measure whether the new initiative, the new idea that you are building is successful. And again, I'm going to highlight a couple of times today, create a culture of openness and experimentation so that your people feel that they can be heard and that they can come to you with new ideas. And a couple of things that it's better not to do or better to avoid in this process. Very often we see that people are focusing on ideas because they just sound cool. Like, for example, everybody wants to have their own ChatGPT right now. So there will be people coming to us saying that they would like to, for example, build a chatbot that will know everything about their company, everything about their clients, everything about this and that, and will act like as a general assistant to every single person in the company. And it sounds really cool, and it sounds like a great idea, but it's extremely complex, and there is usually a lot of bottlenecks along the way in terms of the data availability, in terms of how people approach this kind of idea, how much they believe in this kind of idea. So there's plenty of things that you have to take into consideration when you think about those very cool sounding, flashy AI ideas. It's better to start with something simple. It's better to start with small processes, small parts of the process, and then try to build on top of that and slowly build it into something more complex. Another thing that we see is that people right now tend to try and slap AI on every single problem they see. It's not always the best idea. There is a lot of business problems or business challenges that can be tackled with without artificial intelligence. You can use a lot of different tools, a lot of different ways of classical automation to make your life easier and to avoid those problems or mitigate those problems. So don't try to force AI on everything. Think broader, think about other ways you could approach this problem if possible. Don't force ideas and tools on your team. This is always a bad idea. It's better to convince people to start using something new. If they don't want to use it, they will most probably not use it. So it's not really a great way to go. And it's very important to always include people that are not maybe highly technical. Some of the people that we used to talk to, they would basically do workshops, but only with technical part of the business. So they would have great technical expertise within those conversations, but not much of the business insight or the domain knowledge needed to actually build or understand the problems that we are talking about. So let's think about that as well. And very important, don't treat this part of the process as a one-off thing, because sometimes we see people who want to have a workshop or two, they want to build a portfolio of ideas, and they will think that they will work with that for the next 5-10 years. And it's not like that. The business that you're doing is obviously changing, evolving all the time. So it's very important to come back to this process, come back to this part of the process, revisit that, ask people if anything changed, watch your processes, watch the data, is it changing, and revisit this part of the process anywhere, anytime you can. So hopefully by the end of this phase, you will have a list of great use cases, great ideas of what to do in your business, and how it's going to impact at least some parts of the business that you have. Now, the next step is to take this list, whether it's 10, 20, 50, 100 ideas, and prioritize them and categorize them based on, most importantly, ROI, but there's also a couple of other things that we have to take into consideration here. So the aim and goal of this part of the process is to, most importantly, prioritize all the ideas that we have, so then we can have a clear roadmap of what is most important, what we have to start with, and maybe what are long-term goals, long-term ideas, or maybe what is not that important, and we can think about it next year, for example, or in a couple of years. And the first and most important thing, and a very smart person recently told me that business is just a game where we measure points in dollars, and this is where we start. We have to measure every single idea that we have in terms of the revenue that is going to bring, or at least return on investment. So what is the business value? Is it going to bring us more revenue? Is it going to save us time that's going to allow people to spend more time on most probably bringing more revenue? What are the expected outcomes? How we are going to measure whether this idea is successful or not? So it's very important to start with those most measurable things. And it's very important because of two things. First of all, when you decide to implement something, you will have to have a way of measuring it in a way, whether it's going to be KPIs, whether it's going to be time saved, whether it's going to be revenue. It's up to you and up to your business. And second of all, if you can tie it to a measurable outcome, it's going to be easier for you to buy into sponsorship from your top leaders. The second thing is evaluating complexity. So it's also very important, depending on the approach that you take towards this kind of project. We usually would suggest to look for quick wins. So we look for low complexity problems, low complexity ideas with great return on investment, because these ones, they would build the momentum of AI adoption or innovation in your company. So we are analyzing every single use case in the context of, we call it speed to value. So how fast we can build or implement something, and what is going to be the value that we get out of this implementation. We also look at every use case from the point of build versus buy analysis. So it means that we are trying to understand whether the problem that we are tackling here has already been catered by something that we can buy off the shelf,
And if it is, it's probably easier to implement a tool that is already ready-made and maybe tailor it a bit to our needs rather than build something from scratch. So it's very important to use that as a measure for complexity of the problem that we are tackling here. It's also important to see the internal resources that we have in terms of whether we can build something internally. It's also a factor that's going to lower complexity a little bit. Whether we have resources to maintain solutions that we choose, or maybe we have choose somebody that will implement something for us and maintain this for us as well. So all of this will influence the decisions made within this ROI analysis phase. And the last but not least, most important part to take into consideration here is to assess all the risk factors. And those can be very different. The most common ones that we see that are, I think, common across all businesses is data gaps. So what we've covered already, if you don't have the data to inform the systems that you're trying to build, it's probably going to fail. If there is any kind of security concerns or privacy concerns or any kind of regulations that you have to follow, that will be, just to give you an example, if you want to use some external tools, but it would involve sharing your client's data with external provider, is it a risk to you or not? Is it something that you are willing to take or not? These might be criteria that will actually cross out some of your ideas from the list. And the two factors that we talked about already, which is adoption resistance within your team. It might happen that some tools will not be easily adopted because people will basically not want to use them. And internal buy-in in terms of leadership, whether leadership sees the value in the idea that you are trying to convey here. So at the end of this phase, we hopefully have a prioritized list of use cases. If we started with, say, 10 or 20 use cases, we may just double down to a few of those that are top priority, highest impact, great ROI, great speed to value. And from now on, we should be quite sure where we can start and how we are going to proceed from there. Now, we have three ways of approaching things right now. On one hand, if you have the internal resources to build something, you have a technical team that is experienced in building artificial intelligence solutions, in building automation, you can start building something internally, and it's the best way to go. But if you don't, you have two other avenues you can take. One is to actually build something with an external partner. So we're talking vendor selection. We're talking about criteria that are most important when you're looking for somebody to help you from the outside. And when you decide to build something from scratch, the most important thing is to find a vendor or a partner that will have good business fit with you. So they will understand your business, or at least they will do as much as they can to do that, to understand your business, your challenges, the way you work. They will not just try to force some ideas on you. They will try to understand and listen to what your business wants to achieve. Very often it happens that people just choose a vendor because they're famous, because they're familiar with the name, because they have great reviews. But when they start talking to them, there is not much of a fit. It just doesn't click. So it's important to take that into consideration. Another thing is to take a look at the potential partner and understand whether you're looking for somebody who's just going to come to you and build your idea just based off of your specifications. They will deliver a piece of software, for example, or maybe you're looking for someone who will obviously build, but is also capable of consulting in terms of giving you strategic advice on how to develop your idea, what kind of technology to use, what kind of infrastructure to use to make it as efficient as possible. It's very important to have this distinction. Some people, some companies, they prefer to just have something built and then maybe they have internal resources to maintain it in their own way. So they just provide specification and they're good to go. But most cases, it's good to have somebody with a lot of experience, especially somebody with experience in different industries, in different companies, to maybe give you some advice and and guide you a little bit on this journey. And the last one, obviously, is tech expertise. So if you define a couple of use cases that are specific to a certain part of technology that we are talking about, it's good to find a company that has expertise within this area, whether it's going to be, say, computer vision or generative AI or classical machine learning, predictive algorithms, whatever you name it. If you have a few use cases from this specific area, it's very good to find a vendor or a partner that will show great expertise within this tech area. And the other way we can go is to actually buy something off the shelf. And this one is a bit easier because you can just probably, for most of the tools that you will find on the market, you can just test them out for a couple of weeks, see if it works in your environment, in your use case. But some of the things that we see that are worth taking into account in the very beginning is, first of all, use case alignment. So if you see that you have a use case and there is a tool that was designed specifically for this problem, whether it's going to be sales support or, I don't know, some kind of maintenance support or quality assurance tools, there's plenty of those. If you see that there are tools that have been designed specifically for your industry, for your use case, try those first. There is a high chance they will work better. And then you can go broader. Obviously, you can use Excel for every single problem in your business, but nobody really wants to do that. There's a lot of work to do to make it happen. So if there's something that was built specifically for you, think about those tools first. Now, second of all, the ease of integration. And most of cases where we work with companies who want to buy something off the market and then start using it internally, at some point, they will want to seamlessly integrate it into their workflows. So they are probably already using some systems, whether it's ERP systems, CRM systems, or whatever else. They usually want to, in a way, plug those new tools into what they are using already. So think about this, whether the tool that you're using, that you're choosing for your new use case is something that will easily plug into your current ecosystem. It's going to make your life easier. Most people, they don't want to log into tens of thousands of new tools. It's better to keep everything under one hood. And the last one is security and compliance. And there is plenty of regulations, whether it's in Europe or in the United States, that pertain to data security, to where your data can be stored, who can process the data that you're using with your external provider. Think about those and just make sure that whoever you choose, whatever tools you choose, are secure enough for you to upload and use data with them. So we are ready to go. We have a prioritized list of use cases. We have chosen a vendor, or we have chosen a short list of vendors. We can start thinking about testing things out and actually building something and implementing it into our workflow. And what I really want to highlight here is that this is a continuous circular process. So we start with our use case portfolio. It contains a couple of use cases, a couple of ideas that we have. Hopefully by this point in time, we have, for every single use case, we have a couple of vendors that we could use, a couple of ideas on how to implement those, how to tackle those problems. We can start testing them. So we pick one use case just to make it simple, just to keep it manageable. Pick one use case, start building a proof of concept if you're building something from scratch, something of low complexity with limited data, something that will basically make you, in a very short of time, sure that this is the right way to go. So whether it's going to be something that you build on your own or build with an external partner, or if it's a tool that you're testing, just try to pick a very limited use case to try it out and keep the feedback loop going. So if you see that there is something that is worth improving in this use case, or maybe you should scale it down, maybe it should not be that complex, maybe there's a part of problem that you should tackle when you start using different tools, you will see that maybe there's a way to do it differently. Keep the feedback loop going, and only when you are sure that this limited test phase or proof of concept phase is successful, then go to scaling. So then try to scale the solution to wider audience, maybe more people using it, maybe scale the data that you're feeding to the solution. And when you are successful with scaling, only then go back to your use case portfolio and try picking a new one. Yeah, so we went through the whole process, but I wanted to highlight one more thing before we finish. The whole process, I'm going to say it again, is not a checklist. It is not a linear process. This is something that when you start it, probably in the first go is going to be linear. So you're going to go one by one, and you're going to do every single thing that we talked about today. But at the end of the day, this is a continuous process. So when you get to implementation, and when you start implementing your first ideas, your first tools, or building your first proof of concepts, at some point you will either go back to use case identification, or you will go back to the very, very beginning to business objectives, because businesses evolve. They always change. There is always something changing in the world. There's always something changing in technology. There's always something new coming up. So it's very important to at least occasionally go back to the first step and just double check if anything changed here, and maybe there is some way in which you should adjust the roadmap or the strategy that you've created so far, so that it's better aligned with your business objectives or the way things basically work in your business or in the world generally. And yeah, that's about it from me. Just a few key takeaways before we finish and wrap it down for today. Just remember, AI success is not about chasing the hype. So there is a lot of new technologies. There's a lot of new information about artificial intelligence. It's not always about the hype. It's only about solving real business problems. And when you double down on business problems, you will see that there is plenty of other things that you can do apart from artificial intelligence or the newest technologies that will help you solve those issues. It's important to do the groundwork before you start thinking big. So the things that we talked about in the very beginning, measuring your maturity in the company, measuring the readiness of your company for artificial intelligence are very important steps to take before you go deeper. Try to use a structured approach. The one that I showed you today is just a general idea. And just so you know, whenever we work with our partners, we always tailor this approach to every specific use case. So there is no one size fit all for all of that. Whatever you do, you have to think about your business. You have to think about how to tailor this approach to your specific needs, to the capabilities that you have internally, to the time at which your company is, or the what you're aiming at. There's plenty of things you have to take into consideration when actually thinking about this whole process. And it's very important to start small, but think long term. So think about delivering small solutions, solving small problems, but later on, once it's successful, you will be able to build on top of that and start going big. All right. We do have a few minutes for extra questions, and I can see we have one question here. How long should this process QA time? Yes, thank you. How long should this process take to ensure the technology doesn't become outdated in the meantime? Very good question. So in general, the whole process that we talked about today, in our experience, it takes, if we focus on, say, one or two areas in the business that we are working with, this would take 2 to 3 months just to do it really thoroughly and have some great insights at the end of the process. But to answer your question, you shouldn't really be worried about the technology being outdated. Like I said, the hype is great. Everything is changing by the day. So there is always new technology, but it's very important to think about building and implementing things that will not put you in a so-called vendor lock. So if there's new technology, like for example, new large language model that you want to use for your use case. Think about using technology that will allow you to quickly plug in and plug out the technology that you're using. Another question, how do we manage our resources on creating tools and processes by ourselves for it not to turn out that our current vendor has a better and cheaper solution as we are halfway through the hypercare? Very good question. I have to read it again to understand it properly. Okay, I'm not sure, Przemysław, if I understand your question to the fullest, but I think it's pretty close to what Kasia was asking about just a minute ago. Sorry. Well, generally, the way we would advise on managing resources is to build something long-term. So as I said, think about building the skeleton of the solution that you're looking for, and think about, yeah, an example. That's a good way to go. Create a tool, spend time and resources, and it is already. Yeah, this might happen, and we've seen this with the tools that we are all using right now. Like, there's been a lot of, for example, GPT wrappers for the past couple of years doing things that ChatGPT itself can do right now. And you can see on the news that there are things and features that those companies introduce that just kill other businesses. And it might happen. But the question you should ask yourself here is whether the use case that we are talking about is something that is that important that you should implement it yourself and then develop it yourself, or maybe it's better to wait for Workday or Snow to implement it on their own. So it really is all about the use case and the impact it has on your business. I'd say if it's a high impact use case, it's better to build it as soon as possible to get the ROI rather than wait for Snow or Workday to do this. Okay. I don't think we have any other questions. If you do have any questions, if you'd like to contest me on anything that I said today, or you have better ideas that you'd like to share, feel free to reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn, for example. I will be happy to connect and discuss anything that we've talked about today. And to all of you that joined us, thank you very much. We will be sharing some of the materials from today with everyone invited. So thank you. And if you have any questions, feel free to find me on the internet, and feel free to reach out on any of the social media where you can find us. Thank you. Have a great afternoon or a great morning, depending on where you are. It was a pleasure meeting you today. Have a good one. Bye-bye.